The following is a world-class Bullshitters exclusive.
And now, part 3 of the world-class Bullshitters Retroblasting crossover. You know, real quick, side tangent. So you talked about being a kid, and you said you liked Dick Tracy as a kid, right? You had the toys? Here's a quick funny story, and then we'll move. I just popped into my mind. I was a kid, I had the Dick Tracy toys. I was little. We're talking... I probably had them 2 years after they came out, but I had it. And when I was a kid, I accidentally swallowed the pistol that came with Dick Tracy, and I was rushed to the hospital. And so when I watched your video, and I think you posted a picture of yourself younger or something on the Facebook, and I just thought of that when you talk about being a kid, and I was like, oh my God, I was having a bad flashback. Goddamn Dick Tracy.
Yeah, the Dick Tracy stuff, man, that was a Toys R Us memory. That was the last time I was in a Toys R Us as a young kid, not a teenager, before we had to move to England. Because I was about to turn 12, and I looked for the blank all summer, not knowing that stupid action figure had been held back because of spoilers or whatever, that we didn't call them that back then. But man, there was no news, there was no internet to check that, so you were just running around every day to the different, KB Toys and Circus World and Toys R Us and Target and Service Merchandise and everywhere looking for the blank. And they had everybody else, because the other thing I didn't know was those things ain't selling. So, yeah, that was frustrating.
Well, that sounds just like me in the 90s with Dr. Claw from the Inspector Gadget line.
Yeah.
You never saw it in the store. Now it's worth a ton of money, because I loved it. Inspector Gadget's probably my favorite cartoon character overall still. But I had those toys. I still have the gray one. The other ones, I lost all the pieces over the years. They're still in a box somewhere. But I remember my mom and I for months, let's go look at Toys R Us. Let's look at Walgreens. Let's look here. Let's look there. We looked everywhere for Dr. Claw. I still don't have one. I don't want one now. But back then, man, that was my blank. That was the thing. You never knew that it wasn't widely distributed. Hell, I didn't even know there was a Gadget Mobile as a kid. Yeah. Like, that's how weird the toy line distribution was.
Dude, I've salivated over the Gadget Mobile on eBay. Like, I have,
so
but I want to tell you something. It's okay if you still want Dr. Claw. That is a noble pursuit. And if you decide to go after it, I will actively support you in any way possible.
I'll tell you this. I as much as I love Gadget, I would rather an on-demand toy company release an Inspector Gadget figure, like a modern one. Now, I would put down... I don't want like a 12-inch Gadget, but let's say like an 8-inch tall Gadget with like extendable arms, legs, and neck or something, and a couple gadgets here and there. I would put down money for that. That is a cool character, a cool design. And the thing that sucked as a kid, I was talking about me having attention to detail, is every different gadget had a different colored jacket. Right. So it's like the one that was purple had extendable legs, but on the cartoon it was gray. So I only played with the gray one, even though I had all of them.
Yeah.
It was a weird toy decision. It was like the multicolored Batmans. Though I had, green Batman and this, I took the accessories and put them on black Batman, because that's how Michael Keaton looked in the movie, not purple.
That's right. They made a bad decision making all those variants. But, and I probably shouldn't tell you this because it's going to send you down a rabbit hole, but you do know that there is a 1983 Gadget Doll that was originally made by Bandai in Japan, the same people that made the Power Rangers figures, and it was imported to the U.S. By Galoob, and it's got the extending neck and the helicopter attachment and all the stuff, and it's tall, like it's big.
I want one so bad. I've seen it. When I was looking into it, I was in college. I didn't have the money, and now I'm like, I could spend my money helping the channel grow, or I could buy Inspector Gadget. And I'm like, the channel needs me. That gadget will always exist out there in the world. Maybe one day I'll get lucky. One thing that I dislike about online toy shopping is I like the thrill of the hunt. Like finding quick detour. Batman the Animated Series was my favorite. Still is probably my favorite cartoon. Loved the toy line. Only had one Batman that looked like the show. Mine had Playware, so I would go to conventions and look through the toy bins. When I found one in a toy bin for $1, I got like the biggest rush ever. I'm like, I got one, perfect paint apps, doesn't have a cape, I'll just put one on at home. I want that for all of my toy shopping. Like, that's part of the excitement for me. Like, hey, I'm looking for the vintage original Trilogy Collection Han Solo from 2004. Found it at a Meijer. Oh my God, journey complete. Like, online, it's like, oh, I want Wolverine, click, he's here. Whatever. I don't cherish it as much. I don't know if you've ever had that feeling, but I don't cherish the thing that was easy to find.
Sure. I mean, in some instances, there are things that are not easy to find even online for a click. Like there are some toys that are, it doesn't matter how much money you have in your bank account, you can't just go own it because it's just not out there and you got to wait. So in those instances, I feel like there is still a sense of accomplishment. In other areas, though, I think you're right. I think it is nice to find things in the wild. It is nice to happen upon them. There's many collecting philosophies about that. Some people only trade and swap and only do things offline. Other people like myself, I just need it for a video. I care about it, whatever it is, but I also just need it for a video. So I'm going to have to do what I have to do, to get that thing. So, yeah.
See, he talked about me burning my eyes for watching this stuff. I couldn't imagine, like, if I had a toy channel, like, people want me to talk about, like, I don't know, Deadpool. I don't like Deadpool. To have to spend money on a Deadpool piece of merchandise or anything I dislike would be, I don't know, it'd be hard for me to give a nice review to something that I feel strong-armed into buying or need for,
Right.
I guess I keep my collection oddly personal. Like, you brought up Batman and Robin toys. I actually have 2 Batman action figures from Batman and Robin on my shelf because I had them as a kid, and it was before I saw how crappy that movie was.
Oh, sure.
It was...
No, but I mean, even with that, in that instance, there are going to be toys in that line that are far better than anything that was in the movie because the toys strayed so liberally from the film content itself, especially in the Batman line. So you could almost divorce the toys from the movie experience and say, yeah, these are just some of my Batman toys.
I was, like I told you though, I was a weird kid. I only, like Batman Forever, I loved that. The only 2 figures I had from that movie were the Batman and Robin 2-pack because they had the movie suits from the end of the movie. But you couldn't fit them in the Batmobile because they had those weird, like, pre-positioned 90s poses. And the cape ripped trying to put it in the Batmobile. That's a story for another time. We'll talk off here with my disappointment with Batman toys as a child. But you brought up real quick, you mentioned KB Toys and how they're thinking about bringing it back. Now, one thing you guys mentioned on your stream that I wanted to applaud because when you said it is everyone keeps saying Toys R Us was so expensive, that's why they went out of business. Like you guys said, in many cases, Toys R Us was the cheaper alternative. For me as a kid, and like I said, I lived by a Toys R Us, a Walmart, a Target. Those Toys R Us was the cheap alternative. Walmart was maybe 5 cents cheaper. Like, one was $4.99, one was $4.95. I don't consider that a savings of anything. Right. Really. I mean, I know it's 5 cents, but whatever. But KB Toys was significantly more expensive. We're talking, let's say a Star Wars figure was $5 in the 90s. It was $7 or $8 in the mall. Right. Do you think if they come back out, it's going to work this time? Do you think people will be pumped for the nostalgia, then they'll realize that KB's went out of business for a reason, or what?
Well, KB, the people who own KB said in their press release that they've learned from the mistakes of the last round. They learned from the mistakes of Toys R Us as well, and they are not going to make those mistakes a second time. They didn't really get specific about what those mistakes were. That right now they're trying to assure investors or potential investors, to invest in them. But I feel like there is a vacuum to be filled. But KB, if it's going to come back as a mall-operated store, it's going to run into some problems because of the high rent rates for leasing the space from a mall, which is what kept mall stores more expensive. See, when I was growing up, before KB moved in, it was Circus World in the mall. KB literally moved in where Circus World once stood. But they were always more expensive than going to Toys R Us and then by extension Service Merchandise, Hills, Zayres, Walmart, or not Walmart, Target. They can make this successful if they play toe-to-toe with the toy companies. So right now, I feel like Toys R Us, as you've said on your channel and I've said on my channel, in part, Toys R Us fell victim to Hasbro's lack of innovation and market share. Now, if KB can come to the negotiating table to these companies like Hasbro and Mattel and say, all right, look, you guys need us. All right. We can survive on just selling Playmobil and Lego if we want to. We know it. But if you guys want your stuff in our stores, since you've just lost 11 to 15% of your annual sales because of Toys R Us going under, you're going to have to play ball with us, not the other way around. Things are going to have to change a little bit. Distribution's going to have to be better. If that's built into their plan, then I think they can succeed. If it's not, then it's just going to be KB Part 2, the failure again.
Well, all of my local malls are kind of
Yeah.
failing. It's sad because Cincinnati is a pretty robust area. We have major sports teams, all kinds of nightlife. We have an Apple store. We have multiple Apple stores. I always use that as like, hey, if you got an Apple store in your mall or in your city, you're all right. Well, this was back in the early 2000s, so we were early to have it. Point is, though, we've always had a lot of stuff. And in the malls that KBs used to inhabit, all those mall spaces are still empty. So I would like it if the KB toys would just come back to their old storefronts in every local mall by me, because they're not doing anything there nowadays.
Right.
Like there's this place called the Tri-County Mall. I shit you not. It was a beautiful mall, and it's maybe like a third full.
Right.
And we actually have a mall. You would find this fascinating. Actually, anyone would. We have a mall. It's called Cincinnati Mills, and now it's back to Forest Fair. It has it's like a giant mega mall. It has 2 stores in it. The whole thing is closed, and it's all open. You can walk around. You can see all the remnants of everything else. There's videos made about it, but it's able to stay open from just like 1 or 2 stores. It's a weird place.
Huh. That's
I'll send you a link.
I'd love to see it because my childhood mall closed up, and now it's like, they're trying to turn it into, I don't know, mixed unit living or something. I mean, like it's a ghost town. It went from happening place to slum to ghost town. So if there's a way to revitalize these malls, I'd love to see one that survived.
I mean, I liked the mall atmosphere. Malls were a big deal. Like I brought up Spider-Man earlier and how excited I was. Back then, my mom was off every Sunday, so I saw Spider-Man at the local mall in the movie theater. There was a Showcase Cinema, and then we went shopping and ate at Ruby Tuesdays afterwards. Like, you could do so much at the mall, and I mean, online shopping is great, but it's not an experience. Right. I do like the experience, and I find that I spend more money in a setting like that. Like if I go to the outlet malls, it's like, hey, I bought a couple shirts. Well, I could use a pair of gloves because they're on sale. All this, all that. When I'm on Amazon, I'm like, well, I'm looking for vitamins. So I type it in vitamins, I buy my vitamin, and then I log off or do something else.
Right.
I don't find myself, looking at impulse buy. Same thing with Walmart. I live in an area where the Walmart is like the stereotypical Walmart where people are pretty trashy. Not to hurt anyone's feelings, but like they are. Like I've witnessed some bad stuff at my local Walmart. So if I have to go there, I get what I get and I get right out if I can, because there's only one checkout line open at 30. I would like that atmosphere. Like, hey, you go to the mall to buy one thing, you end up getting 12 things, or so-and-so has a sale, or you have lunch, or you do these things. Like, it wasn't that long ago where that was the standard. All these things have changed relatively quickly, and for better or worse, that's where we are in terms of a society of like consumers.
Yeah, we are. I remember going to the mall, and there was the hot fashion store. I was too little, I was still single digit ages, but I remember kids breakdancing on the tiles in front of this one trendy store, and it was a planned thing. It wasn't like they were sitting there being punks. Like these kids, they had the big boombox out because it was a store for teenagers to buy dance clothes, like clubbing clothes, and there were these guys and girls doing these breakdancing demonstrations right there on the tile in front of this store, and that wasn't unsettling. It was just part of the culture of the mall. Like the mall was the place to be. They used to have the big traveling Lego presentations there where they would bring in like the huge replicas of like the White House and stuff for an evening, all internally lit. And you'd go to the mall and you'd go walking through the entire mall, seeing all the Lego sculptures and stuff. I mean, it was a cool place to be, and you can't really do that in open air shopping forums. It doesn't work.
Mm-mm. Were you a Lego kid growing up or not?
I had
really?
space Legos, like a few sets, but I was more of an action figure kid. So
Same here. Same here. And the fact that they really didn't do, I don't think they did licensed stuff until Star Wars in
right,
'99. So I was one of those kids. I wanted the licensed stuff, licensed video games, licensed toys. Like, if it wasn't based on something I could watch or, do, I didn't do it. And Legos, to me, my friends would have Legos and they'd just be a bucket of crap. And I'm like, you mean I got to put all this together?
right.
And then I would rather play with, Spider-Man or something
Yeah,
like that.
exactly. Yeah.
When I look at the toy stores like that, I just always go back and think of the classic stuff that I grew up with. You brought up like how there was like Batman and X-Men toys and stuff like that, and the Toys R Us stream, and that's what I always go to. And it would be cool to see like modern stuff sold in that, or like retro styled stuff sold in that
Yeah.
setting in the future. Maybe I'll be like, oh man, they got this Cyclops figure. Oh shit, it's at the KB Toys. Oh well, it's like 1998 again. I think I'll buy it.
Right.
So, are there any other stores? They don't have to be toy stores, just a store in general that you miss, or you ever think, man, I wish I could go back in time and revisit.
I've given this a lot of thought, probably more thought than an adult man should. But, Target is still around, and Target is the one, surprisingly, that I got my Darth Vader at a Target. I got my Luke Skywalker Jedi figure at a Target. I got my Land Speeder. I got a number of things at Target, and it's funny to tell people that because a lot of people don't realize that Target's been around that long. Yeah.
Me neither.
I was at Target's before I was at a Toys R Us ever. But if there was one store that I could really go back and visit again, that's not around anymore. There's a few that I could choose from, but I have actually pinned it down. Places like Circus World, K&K Toys, that's not a misspeak. K&K Toys were mall stores. They were pretty cool, and it would be hard pressed for me not to select that. But the store with the biggest toy selection that isn't around anymore, that wasn't a dedicated toy store in my memory, was Service Merchandise.
Oh, we used to have that here.
Service Merchandise had the most kick-ass toy section you can imagine, and I would give anything to walk through a mid-'80s Service Merchandise again. Just seeing all the action figures and the tickets you had to pull down to get the bigger stuff because they would then bring them out on the conveyor belt or whatever. It was just a great place to buy toys. And I'm sad to say that the only vivid memory I have from Service Merchandise is taking one for the team when we were kids, because my brother and I would go in and we'd both get to pick a toy. And I decided to be mature and take one for the team because my brother had a massive Masters of the Universe collection. But the one omission was he did not have He-Man's sister. And so I walked into the pink aisle. And when I say that, I'm not being metaphorical. It was literally an aisle full of pink boxes and pink packaging. It was the girls' toy aisle. And I said, I'm walking out with She-Ra for our collection, damn it. And I did. And then eventually word got around that Michael had bought a She-Ra. And that was the end of my reputation for the next 6 months. But I stand by my decision because it rounded out the effing cast for our Masters of the Universe adventures, and I regret nothing.
Dude, when you brought up Service Merchandise, I had a flood of memories because I don't know if yours was set up like this, but you walked in and there was like a jewelry section. And then like behind there was like, I remember I have a keyboard that I bought there in the year like 2000. So, because we still had like an electronic section, and then there was stuff in the middle, and then for ours on the far right hand side in the back was the toy section. And I'll never forget, Christmas 1996. I wanted the Millennium Falcon. It was $59 at Toys R Us. I remember going to the Toys R Us and asking them to call Service Merchandise to price check because it was $49 there. And my mom's like, if you want the Millennium Falcon, you got to do that. I'm like, okay, Mom, I want the Millennium Falcon. Service Merchandise, the building is still there because it was in a strip mall. And up until recently, it even had those like weird, it had like arcs, like these arch things. They were like a weird purplish color. They were there for years. Like the front of the store was still there. They just recently turned it into a Michael's Crafts, which they then moved again. So I have great memories of Surface merchandise. I talked about Power Ranger toys. I remember getting the ad one day. I was looking for the blue one that his head flipped over, and they had it in the ad. And I'm like, Mom, we have to go there. They have it. It's in this newspaper.
Right.
I didn't realize how it worked back then. But I loved that store. I used to get, that was like the second place on my shopping list. It's like, Toys R Us doesn't have it. Let's check Service merchandise. Hell, I got that Batmobile I was talking about earlier at Service merchandise.
Right. Yeah. The selection there was only rivaled by Toys R Us in my experience. And I mean, Target used to have a great selection of toys back when I was a kid. I don't want to denigrate it, but Service merchandise, that was the true substitute for Toys R Us.
Well, you brought up Target. Like for us, we didn't really get a Target in my neighborhood until like 1997. And we got a Walmart in like 96. Right. Now, they were in other bigger neighborhoods in Cincinnati, but those stores were newer, comparatively speaking. So, like, I've bought some stuff at Target. Like, I bought a PlayStation at Target and stuff like that, but it was just I don't know. It was later in this life cycle of my toy love.
My memory is very weird how specific it gets with that kind of stuff. Like, I can tell you, I got Chewbacca at a Kroger. I got X-Wing Luke Skywalker in the shoe department of JCPenney because JCPenney sold toys back then, and they're starting to again now. And they just had a random little island of Star Wars figures, all of them X-Wing Lukes, right there in the shoe department one day. I guess it was overfill or whatever, or overspill. IG-88, I got him at the toy department at Sears. Bespin Luke was Circus World. Endor Luke was K&K Toys. Darth Vader Jedi Luke were Target. It's weird how we have those memories. And I don't know why we retain those, but I still can't do calculus. I'm not sure why that is, but
I think emotion is tied into it, and sometimes emotion, like that's why certain people won't admit that Disney Star Wars movies or whatever, because they have emotional ties to that. And when you brought up remembering everything where you got it, I'm the same way, and it's probably because those things that came into our lives made us incredibly happy, and that's why we remember everything.
Absolutely true.
So, real quick, have you ever heard of a store called Media Play? Because that would be my answer to that question.
Media Play was something I discovered when we moved back from England in the mid 90s, and it was a great store. That was where I discovered the temptation known as Laserdisc.
You were a Laserdisc collector?
Yeah, I was. I finally offloaded them at a electronics what do you call that? Dump, like a place where they safely recycle electronics. I offloaded all of them except the good ones. So I saved my Star Wars Definitive Collection box set. I saved my Back to the Future Laserdiscs, my Supermans, my Indiana Jones, and a few choice others. But I got rid of all the others, like the ones my parents had collected. Like, I don't need American President and Eraser. So I got rid of the.
I don't think anybody needs.
No,
Eraser.
But I got rid of those in a big stack. But Media Play was where I would pick up a lot of my laser discs as a teenager. So.
Well, I said today to myself, like, man, for me going through and filming Toys R Us as it closed, I would kill to go back and film through a Media Play because I remember it vividly in my mind. But that. That's one. We didn't have smartphones. Well, we had phones with cameras in 2006 when the store closed, but not what we have today.
Right.
And it would have been like this little crappy, was it 144p video of me just walking down an aisle with really crappy sound. But.
Well, you also had Media Play was the best place outside of a comic book store to get role-playing books as well, like role-playing rule books and stuff. So I would collect the Star Wars West End Games role-playing game books back then as a teenager, and Media Play was the place to go to look for the latest publications. I got a lot of music there. I bought more than a few DVDs there at the beginning of the DVD era. But I bought more than a few laser discs there as well.
I my grandma would take me out shopping, and she would take me to lunch, and then she'd want to look at Dress Barn, and Media Play was in the same strip mall, like the parking lot. So I'd say, Grandma, drop me off at Dress Barn. Or not drop me off at Media Play while you're at Dress Barn. I'd go back and I'd read, because they have magazines you would never see anywhere. Right. And sometimes I'd read Heavy Metal magazine, even though I wasn't supposed to. I was like 10, and I was like, oh my God, there's boobs in this book. Like, I have to see this. And, I would read Toy Fair magazine, which is no longer with us. Wizard. Like, some of the best pop culture stuff didn't survive because of the internet.
Oh, yeah. Like, we did a presentation a few years ago at Dragon Con on 80s ninjas. And a whole section of the presentation was about all the ninja magazines that were sold in the mid to late 80s and early 90s, just like the most ridiculous publications. But as a kid, you just wanted them so badly because you wanted to learn how to kick somebody's ass with a phone book. And they tell you how to do it in this magazine.
I remember in the 90s the martial arts craze so much that I took Taekwondo for years because I wanted to be a Power Ranger and learn how to fight.
Hey, at least you stayed with it. I was only in Taekwondo for like a month.
I won 2 state trophies because I was a big kid, and I remember the first championship I won I just won a trophy. I didn't win a title, but I won 2 of the first place sparring trophies because I was so tall I roundhouse kicked a kid in the head by barely lifting my foot like as high as you should normally, and I knocked him like down and got all these points. So I stuck with it for a couple years. I should have stuck with it longer because my teacher started to train me like more intense than anyone else. But as like a 6-year-old, or no, I wasn't 6, I was 8, going on 8 or 9. I didn't realize that he like saw something in me, so I quit. Right. But I look back, I'm like, God damn it, I should have been sticking with that because I could have been like, I'm not saying I would have been like this martial arts star, but I've been very proficient in it, and it would be a fun, bonus to have in my life.
Yeah, that would have been cool. But I mean, hey, no regrets, right? I mean, like you're working back towards it now. Before we know it, you'll be Ryu from Ninja Gaiden. It'll be awesome.
It's funny you talk about no regrets. Like, I think about certain things, and I'm like, this channel is growing. I'm able to have conversations like this with someone like you who I watch. Like, so there are definitely no regrets because things are moving in such a positive way that I'm like really, I've never been like depressed in life or anything like that, but I'm so excited right now for like the future of this. And, no matter how bad entertainment gets, we can always find a way to discuss it intelligently and keep people engaged. There's just an endless possibility for like, what we can do.
And these voices are going to be collectively, not necessarily individually, but collectively, the independent voices toward pop culture and media are going to become more and more important as these media conglomerates and corporations consolidate and then continue to try and leverage their influence on us to get us to say what they want us to say. So the longer you stay independent and the more you have a reputation for being independent and then keeping other people around you independent, the more influential the average person can be. So
I always say that there's, power to the people in terms of that. I don't ever make it political on this channel, but in terms of entertainment, people really do hold the power. Just don't buy shit and complain. And if people complain and don't spend the money, they'll change it really quickly because everything's about the dollar, and you guys are the ones spending the money. It's not like Disney produces their money out of thin air. You people give it to them. So I do what I can do within reason to make sure that I don't give the money and try to at least have people think about why they are. I'm not saying my voice, you listen to everything I say, but at least I want to give you 30 reasons why I think you should skip it, not because I said so.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's just not
exactly. It's not so much about us trying to tell other people what to do. It's just more about them having the confidence to know there's someone out there that's going to give you the straight up opinion that's honest and not influenced. And I mean that literally, because now they actually have social media people who are called, their job is they're called influencers. They are called social media influencers, and it is to them not a dirty word, but it's right out there in your face. And a lot of people don't realize that literally means they are trying to get you to do or buy a certain thing for the benefit of a larger entity.
I can tell, like, I have a good sense of, I don't want to say sense of smell, but in a metaphorical way, like I can smell when someone doesn't know their
Right.
shit. And that instantly turns me off, because I'm going to make a point in a second, because we're about to move into the final phase. I'm going to ask you a few questions. They're just basic one-off questions. They don't really require a lot of thought, and I'll get into that more. So, real quick, favorite toy as a child overall?
Oh man, that's a brutal question.
Ha!
Favorite toy as a child overall is going to be, I guess it would have to be my X-Wing fighter from Kenner when I was a kid, because we went on a bazillion adventures together, and it was extremely portable. The Falcon could get a little unwieldy as a child, but the X-Wing was the perfect size. Yeah, that's my pick, is the X-Wing fighter.
Good choice. Luckily, I was a big kid, so the Falcon with that little handle on the bottom was nothing. I could just, That's why my landing gear was really loose, because I used to hold it and fly it around like my doorways were asteroids and shit like that. But that's another story. So, favorite toy as an adult?
Oh, and he throws the curveball. Favorite toy as an adult. Now I'm thinking into the room over there. I think just from a pure fascination perspective, it would have to be. I hate to stick with Star Wars, but I'm going to have to anyway. It's the Palitoy Death Star from the UK.
That is so cool.
I mean, that toy is so awesome, and I never thought I'd see it except in photographs. So to have one is pretty just stunning. Every time I turn the corner in the room and see it there, I'm like, oh my God, that thing is actually in my studio. So different from the American version, but nothing is lost. I mean, it is a different play experience, but it is no less cool.
I always wondered why, in these cost-cutting measure days, why doesn't just Hasbro release cardboard playsets with plastic fasteners? What's your excuse? They're so cheap.
I think their excuse is probably that they would say that, and I know they've done it a little bit in the past. The Power of the Jedi line had the Cantina and Jabba's Palace as cardboard playsets back in the 90s and early aughts. Mm-hmm. But I bet you it has to do with, we don't think people will buy these because they're, made from paper, and people expect a higher quality product these days. And I can hear the PR spin on it now.
They couldn't use that excuse, though, with the modern action figures, as crappy as they're painted.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see. What was the toy as a kid that you wanted, you thought about, but never got?
Toy as a kid I wanted and thought about, but never got. Let me think. The AT-AT was one that I never got. Let's see. I know I'm missing a few here. Oh, I wanted the G.I. Joe headquarters, the original, but I never got that. I missed it. It was already out of print. I wanted Megatron really bad. Never got him as a kid. Those would probably be my top three. Although there were probably a few action figures here and there I wanted individually that I never got as well. Hoth Leia, that was one I never had until I found her at a garage sale. Still as a kid, but she was used and had no weapon. So that was a little bit of a letdown. But probably those three. Yeah.
What is your most wanted toy as an adult right now? Like, what's one thing you're just either you're on the fence that you don't want to pay the price, or you just can't find? Like, what's your holy grail piece right now?
The Ghost Command playset for the Filmation Ghostbusters line from Shopper. The Ghostbusters cartoon that had the ape, not the real Ghostbusters, but that other show. They had this amazing, massive haunted house headquarters. It looked like something like a cross between the Addams Family and something from like Batteries Not Included. But it was this amazing playset, and it's extremely rare, and it's extremely hard to find complete because it was almost like a dollhouse. I'd love to have that, and I'm willing to pay whatever, but I'm not going to buy one incomplete, because the moment you do that, you're just throwing your money away because you'll never find the parts for it. So I'm waiting. We'll see.
That's what I'll have to Google, because I've never even. I mean, I know the cartoon, and there's even a live action version first, right? Isn't there like a live action film? Okay, I know that. I didn't know they were toys. I just thought it was like a show that happened to have the same name as the good Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
So I knew that's why the real Ghostbusters was called the real
Yeah,
Ghostbusters.
we do a two-parter. We have a two-part video on our channel about the cartoon and then the toy line. And that's one of the few times on Retroblasting where I say, try as we might, we could not locate the Ghost Command playset for this video, but I wanted to give you a sense of scale. And so I literally superimpose like a drawing of it over the car so that you can kind of see how big it would have been. And then I show some pictures of the box and stuff like that from the internet. But yeah, that's kind of one I'd really like to have.
All right, here's a controversial question, which I'm going to direct people towards your video for, but this is something I wanted to discuss because this is one of the times where you said something and I was like, this guy gets it. So why do pop vinyls suck?
Pop vinyls suck because they are not toys. They are a product that is designed specifically to evoke the OCD collector mentality. So they're numbered, they're endless variations like Beanie Babies, and they say, all of these are going to be collectively, valuable on some level, and some of them are exclusives to these conventions, and some of them are exclusives to these retailers, and we've blanketed all these licenses out so you can get a G.I. Joe pop vinyl next to a Walking Dead pop vinyl next to a SpongeBob SquarePants and next to a Bob Ross. And it's like, okay, at this point, Funko, you guys are just assholes because these are not toys. They are dust catchers. They have no movable parts. They have no accessories. All of them look the same. They all look like sharks skinned people alive and wear them as meat suits. Like they're not interesting. And yet people are just soaking them up. I mean, they're the Beanie Baby of the 21st century and no one sees it yet. Although if you talk to toy retailers, meaning collectible toy retailers who have people bring them stuff, to offload, they are starting to see now people bringing them wheelbarrows full of these pop vinyls, begging them to take them off their hands, and the toy store owners are like, no, I can't sell those any more than you can get rid of them. You shouldn't have bought them to begin with. So yeah, I think they're garbage.
Well, see, I feel the same way as you because when I look at a pop vinyl, I look at it as an indicator because you can tell a lot about a person that tries to pass themselves off as a nerd, and I'm using quotations online, by what's on their shelves. And I want to clarify this. It's not about the money. It's not about, this moral sense of superiority, but it's about being around stuff that you love. And when I see videos of people passing themselves off as collectors, but it's just a bunch of pop vinyls or those giant Jack Specific figures or the newest Star Wars stuff, I see props and not a collection. And therefore, when I hear them discuss movies and pop culture, it's like, just show me something you've had.
Right.
I don't need you to have, like you have this luxurious collection of vintage Star Wars toys behind you in your studio, and I'm like, wow, okay, that is awesome. But if somebody had, like, I don't know, a Buzz Lightyear bank or just something they've had and they're talking about Disney, at least it goes to show me that it's like, hey, that is, a longtime fan or somebody that cares. And pop vinyls to me are like the most soulless piece of pop cultural ephemera you can get. It's just like, what is it? It's just a hollow shell. And its popularity is fleeting, and when it's gone, it's gone, and so is your interest in whatever you claim to be a fan of.
It's pure marketing trash, and it is what it symbolizes, as you just said. It is a hollow experience of a hollow object. Like it's I cannot believe they have become successful, and I think the only reason they have is because of the OCD mentality for collecting. People think, oh, I like G.I. Joe. These are licensed G.I. Joe objects. I must own them. And it's like, stop being a capitalist robot. Like this is just materialism run amok at this point. I'm not even trying to get political. I'm saying reclaim your bounty, people. Don't buy these things. Have some dignity.
See, I always felt about I feel about pop vinyls the way I felt about like Mini-Mates and stuff. But as I've gotten older with Mini-Mates, I'm a little more lenient because they make Mini-Mates of things that don't get other merchandise. Like, I bought the Beetlejuice ones. They were $7 for a 2-pack. You don't see Beetlejuice stuff out there very often. And when you do, if you don't buy it, it goes up in value. Like the NECA Beetlejuice. I saw that thing 50 times and I never bought it. Now it's like $90. Right. That is a huge regret for me. So I kind of filled in that hole with some Beetlejuice stuff from Mini-Mates. But any of the toys, like, you remember those Mighty Mug things and all those?
Uh-huh. Oh, I do.
Like anything that's like a singular body that either they paint it differently or they put a sticker over the front, or within the terms of pop vinyls, at least there's a different sculpt on it, but it's the same head. Like that to me is not a collectible. That is an assembly line thing that vaguely resembles the thing you love. Like, I can get behind like reusing parts for certain things, like Marvel Legends or wrestling figures. They reuse arms and legs because it's an arm and a leg. It doesn't have to be independently sculpted for everything. But with pop vinyls, they all have the same face.
Right.
And you just look at them and it's like, why? Why did I buy this? Why does this exist? If you want The Rock as a pop vinyl, why not just buy The Rock as an action figure?
Yeah. There's very little effort put into these. So why are people buying into them so excitedly? I don't know. Maybe they just don't think they can do any better, you know?
Well, I think people need to start demanding higher quality everything in terms of, let's just demand, I always say this, never be judgmental of people, be judgmental of companies or corporations or things. And why not demand better everything? Like I said about the hyperrealism in video games and stuff, why not demand a better quality product? Why not demand, like you go to conventions, I go to conventions, people eat up the dumbest shit at these conventions. Why not just collectively as a group of people, let's eat up the good shit and leave the crap. Let's not just buy into the moment, because those moments don't really last, and you just are left with a lot of regret.
Oh, yeah.
Like, and the people don't come back. If we can even go back to Star Wars, look at the huge discrepancy in ticket sales and box office from The Force Awakens to The Last Jedi. We're talking like, almost $750 million. Yeah. People that got caught up in the emotional high didn't come back. No,
they didn't.
And it's not, and I hate the excuse, it's the second chapter in the Star Wars saga. It always is going to make less.
No,
maybe that's happened, but that doesn't happen with every franchise.
No, it doesn't. And in this case, and I know people like to claim, oh, well, Empire Strikes Back was divisive too. It's like, no, not like this. This is a deal breaker for a lot of people. They're not going to come back. I'm frankly appalled by Disney's willingness at this point, their culpability in dividing the fan base like this. I'm amazed at how they want to, how they're content to run off a good section of the audience and just watch their backs, because I feel like they've done irreparable damage. I know I'm not going back. Nothing you could say is going to get me to sit in that theater for episode 9. Nothing. I couldn't get in the theater for episode 8 because of episode 7. And then when I actually saw it, I was like, my decision was justified. I don't know.
No. It's look at this. It's an important time as a Star Wars fan. While I said it's the worst time to be a Star Wars fan, and I firmly stand by that, it's a time where people can finally say how they feel honestly, and it's not. It doesn't feel forced or faked. Like, when you said that stuff, I could hear the frustration. I could feel your frustration. I lived it. Like, I don't know if you heard this on our review, but I almost got into a fight with someone. Not because I was angry that they disagreed with me, but I was in a bad place. I was like, this movie sucked. And then all I said is, that movie was bad. And then they had a PETA advertisement in the middle of it, and I got really pissed. And this guy goes behind me and says, or the guy behind me goes, "What's wrong with animal rights?" And I looked at him, I said, if you want to say something to me, say it to my face instead of being so passive-aggressive. And then it turned into a thing. And, oh, God, that was my frustration. That was my bad moment. And I will have to watch episode 9. And I hope you listen to our review, and I hope you hear the distress in my voice and know that I did it for the listeners.
Oh, see, that's the thing, is that I'm not judging anybody who wants to go see it or needs to go see it. I'm talking about for myself. Yeah.
Oh no, but I feel the same. I know that, and I feel the same way as you. I want to just forget so many things, like Tomb Raider stuff people have asked me to go see for the channel. I'm just going to pass it up because, I go see Tomb Raider, I take the time, make a review, 5,000 people watch it, that's cool, but that's not our
Right.
brand. Like, what do I have to add about Tomb Raider? I liked the first game in 1996.
Right.
I hated Angelina Jolie's movies. I don't like Laura Croft as a
Right.
character. So.
Right. See, I'm the guy that loved Laura Croft as a character, hated what they did to her in the marketing, hated the first Angelina Jolie film so bad I didn't go see the second one. Then I finally saw the second one and I was like, oh, well, the plot, it's not Raiders of the Lost Ark, but at least they're trying harder with this one. But no one went to see it because everybody got burned rightfully by the first one. And I applaud the movie-going public for punishing the studio for the crappy first one. I really do. I think that the audience did the right thing by themselves. Similarly to this, I saw Force Awakens. I said, I will not pay to see episode 8. I will see it on a bootleg. I saw episode 8 on a bootleg. It was so bad. I'm like, I'm not even going to look for a bootleg for episode 9. I don't care how this ends. I'm done. I'm out,
So you won't be joining us for our episode 9 commentary in 2020?
Oh, don't get me wrong. I'll be waiting for your review and I'll listen to your commentary on it because that's the only way I'll be able to stomach it. But I'm not going to be able to sit through it. Look, I'll put it to you this way, and I will not mince words. You will have to get me through that. You will have to tell me what that movie was like, and I will listen to you, and through the power of my imagination, I will be contented, and I will say, that is all I need to know. Thank you, Jeff. I'm going to go on my way now. I'm going to go live my life. I don't need to.
I will be incredibly descriptive just
That's
for you.
fine. You don't even have to be descriptive. You could sit there and tell me in the time it takes to read Clifford the Big Red Dog about this movie, and I would say, thank you. That was an adequate amount of time because I trust your judgment. So, yeah.
Thank you.
if you judge that that's all it's going to take to tell Michael about this movie, I will go, I trust Jeff's wisdom and insight, and I appreciate him taking the time. I'm moving on now. I'm going to go have a waffle. Like, that's what I was going to do. So.
Waffles sound good, but it is late. I don't want to eat a waffle right now. It would go against everything I was talking about off air. So I got 2 questions for you, and then we'll close this out, because this has been a lot of fun. I lost track of time, honestly.
No problem. No problem.
So favorite 80s film overall?
Oh, man. If I was to have talked to you about this, say, 6 months ago, I probably would have just said The Empire Strikes Back. Technically, though, it was made in 1979, and Star Wars isn't what it used to be. I would probably, it's a tie now. My favorite 80s movie is probably a tie between Raiders of the Lost Ark and Back to the Future. That's
excellent choices. Real quick, I talked about only realizing that I thought there was one Star Wars movie. I had Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom as a kid on tape, and I didn't realize there were 2 other ones.
Oh, yeah.
So I would watch Temple of Doom repeatedly, and I'd wait for the boulder scene because I used to watch Muppet Babies, and they would show that clip. And I was like, maybe I missed it. So I'd go back and I'd watch the whole movie, and for some reason, when I was like 5, I was stupid, but I never put it together that there was more. And then one day I read the back of the box, and I was like, oh my God, there's another Indiana Jones movie. Hell, there's 2 more Indiana Jones movies. So... oh man, Raiders is fantastic. Though my first love will always be Temple of Doom, just because. One thing I will say about it, and I won't go into super detail. Raiders of the Lost Ark was very focused on being a throwback to serials of the 1930s and such, and I respect that. And I would, on a scale of 1 to 10, I'll still give Raiders a 10. But what I like about Temple of Doom is that it's an Indiana Jones movie. It's come into its own a little more, and certain things in that film aren't replicated in Last Crusade. Like Last Crusade and Raiders are very similar, and I love them both. But Temple of Doom is its own thing, and I feel Indiana Jones is a little more heroic in Temple of Doom than he is Raiders, because like the scene where he goes back to save the kids and all that stuff, and the action's just amped up just as high.
And it's a shadow sequel to Gunga Din, which makes it even more badass. If you watch our Dragon Con panel on the history of Indiana Jones, I walk through Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. It is literally a sequel to Gunga Din with Cary Grant. And I find that amazing. I love the fact that it goes for broke. And really, if it depends on what side of the bed I wake up on in the morning, whether or not I'm secretly thinking Temple of Doom or Raiders is better than the other. I love Temple of Doom, so I think it's an underrated movie by most of the movie going public. And
You know what? One thing, I think that like the tide has turned because back in the 90s, people didn't talk about Temple of Doom so negatively. I feel like that's a more modern thing, which is stupid.
it was talked about by parents back in the 80s. I'll tell you that I wasn't allowed to see it as a child in the 80s. I didn't see it till 1994. But I've always been a proponent of it. Like growing up, I had everything of Temple of Doom but the movie. I played the arcade game. I had the Nintendo game. I had the cassette soundtrack. I had the posters from Wendy's, but I wasn't allowed to see the movie. I was only allowed to watch Raiders of the Lost Ark on video cassette. But it's
which is weird because I think Raiders is more violent than
totally agree. Totally agree. But that was the way it fell out, and but to this day, I defend Temple of Doom ardently from any of its detractors.
That's a bizarre thing to think, though. I mean, I'm not a parent, so I can't, put that cap on. But like, Raiders has an exploding head, a melting face, a sucked-in face. The gunshots produce blood, unlike the other. In Temple of Doom, when people get shot, they just fall over.
Right.
And Raiders, when he shoots the Arab guys in the truck, they're bleeding. Like, there's more gore and violence in that one. I guess because of the way it was portrayed in the media. That's really interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's the one thing. I can always read books and I can get a general idea, but unless I lived back then, I can't get the feel of certain things. Like, only a writer is only, so good.
Exactly.
I'll close this one out. This is a personal question for me, not to you, but what's your favorite Bond flick?
The Living Daylights. And the reason that is I won't belabor the point, but Dalton, he very much was my Bond. It was I had seen the Sean Connerys and I had seen the Roger Moores before Dalton came onto the scene because of the ABC Saturday Night Movie. Thank God for that. And my dad had raised me on Goldfinger and For Your Eyes Only. So, he was good in that department. I liked those movies. But when they said there will finally, there's going to be a new Bond, and it was, Timothy Dalton, and I went to see it with my dad. Bond was the bonding experience between my father and I because he didn't really like other movies all that much. And so we went to see it together without my brother, which was a nice rare occasion because I needed time away from my brother. But we saw Living Daylights together, and then we went to see License to Kill when it came out. So Dalton is he's really my Bond, and I like the fact that Living Daylights is still during the Cold War. I like the fact that it takes place in Europe for the most part. I like the fact that it's got an arms deal rather than a guy trying to take over the world with an undersea base or whatever. I like a lot of elements of it, and I also like the fact that Dalton is sort of harder edged than Roger Moore was.
There's definitely a cool factor with Timothy Dalton way over Roger Moore. Like, I was really sad when Roger Moore died because I really loved James Bond. I was like, man, Bond died, even though he's not what I think of when I think of James Bond, but he's the first actor. But I'm glad you said The Living Daylights because I know I talk to a lot of Bond fans online. It's a weird community. And everyone tries to say that License to Kill, not everyone, but from what the people I've interacted with, they always go License to Kill. I think License to Kill is one of the lower end. I won't say it's the worst. I give that to Moonraker or Diamonds Are Forever or something crappy. But The Living Daylights is a fantastic Bond movie. That's in my top 5 personally. I love the score. Timothy Dalton's still fun, but he's harder edged. And that theme song. Have you ever heard the non-movie version, the one that's just by Aha from the album?
You know what's funny? I think I've heard it online, but I don't own it yet, which is a big omission in my collection.
Check it out. For as much as I like the one from the film, the one that's not from the film to me is superior. It has this ending that's like all synthesizer and really crazy, and there's no saxophone or anything in it. So check it out. If you listen to it on YouTube tomorrow or something on your way to work, let me know.
Yeah, I will.
Well, folks, this has been a lot of fun. It's been a lot longer than we planned. This is a 3-hour video, but whatever. I feel like for every minute for minute, pound for pound, this is the best 3 hours and change of world-class bullshitters content we've been able to produce. And I would like to thank Michael French of Retroblasting for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I'm sorry it went on so long. I just hope that everything that we talked about was valuable to you.
I wouldn't even apologize in that way. I think if people will sit down and listen to this whole thing, they will get a 3-hour discussion that is unlike anything else on YouTube, because I know a lot of stuff on YouTube is popular as little digestible bites, and I get that. I make videos like that to cover news topics and stuff like that. But you're not going to get this from everywhere else, and this isn't like for me to promote the channel's originality. You're not going to get two guys that are on the same page in this way, and it's a refreshing dialogue. It's not we got to sit and talk about. We didn't really get into gender politics too much. We didn't talk about sexism and racism in entertainment. We were able to talk about entertainment in a nice, pure fashion. Yes, we covered certain aspects of agendas and stuff like that, but overall, this was a very pure, fun discussion. And that's what I think the listeners should take as this is a lot of fun. And Michael, I just want to let you know you are welcome back anytime on this channel. If you ever get bored and you want to hang out, shoot the shit, we'll record it, we'll make a video, and we'll talk about anything. But I feel like tonight we covered a lot of good
Absolutely.
topics.
Thank you for having me again. I was really shocked when you reached out to me. I was humbled, and I'm really glad to be here. Thank you.
And make sure that you share this video, and make sure that you check out the Retroblasting channel, because I'm not blowing hot air up your ass. It is a fantastic channel. Michael's a guy who knows his shit. Melinda's a woman who knows her shit. They're just a really fun couple to watch. They have the coolest Star Wars toy collection, and there are other toy channels on YouTube, but you're going to get a guy that just tells you about the points of articulation in front of a white background. When Michael talks about toys, there's a history, there's a passion, there's a lot of humor. That's one thing I think a lot of people need to expect from your channel. Your videos are funny. They're dry humor at times, and there's really overtly funny stuff. There's a little bit of everything for everybody. I can't recommend it strongly enough. So I will have that link in the description. Thank you everyone for watching.